Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of the Copilot Compass, where each week we take a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot. As always, I have the pleasure of being joined by my esteemed colleague, our resident smart guy, and fellow Copilot enthusiast, Logan.
Thanks, Grant. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And Logan, why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit more about what they can expect from this week's episode?
Yeah, so as always, we're going to get started with our question of the week, and then we're going to get into our topic, which is Copilot in Excel. So we're going to go through a couple interesting use cases. Yeah, it should be fun. I really enjoy using Copilot in Excel. We can do some pretty cool things, so it should be a good episode. And yeah, make sure you stay tuned to the end for a sneak preview of what we have coming out next. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to this one. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's get into our question of the week. And remember to either leave a comment on this video or email the email address in the description with your own question. So yeah, let's get started. So this week our question is, what are some of the challenges faced during the deployment of Copilot?
Challenges. Okay, yeah. I'll take it a little bit different of a direction. Like I'm kind of, realizing uh, that when I look back on the early stages of Copilot, like I was impressed. I thought it was cool. I thought I was really using it effectively in PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. But as I kind of, now 6 months later, am recognizing like, boy, I really only had very rudimentary skills. Like I kind of understood the concept of the prompting, but I think learning to be more specific with my prompting, referencing multiple files in some instances rather than just a single file. And I've just kind of continued to find more and more use cases. So it's again, I realize I'm kind of cheating the question a little bit here, and this isn't really a challenge, but like this is just something I was reflecting on as I was working through a scenario yesterday. It's like, man, 6 months ago, I would have never even thought this is possible. So I think, building the habit of continuing to use it, continuing to try to learn, has been really helpful for me. And again, looking back on it, well, I thought I was a Copilot Pro 6 months ago. I really, really was not, and I'm still continuing to learn and find new use cases. So, I don't know. What about you, Logan? I realize I cheated the question, but what about you? Any deployment challenges you can think of?
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, this is applicable to really any new technology being implemented, but it's like getting people to actually use it, right? Because
Yeah.
people like to do things the way that they've been doing things, and it's understandable. It works for them. But it's tough. You have to like consciously make the effort to build these new habits of using Copilot, and it doesn't come naturally immediately. Like I know for one, when I got my Copilot license, at first, I didn't really use it. I mean, part of that was not knowing all of the features.
Right.
Also, it was just I'd been doing this way and it works, so why would I stop? So you have to
Right.
consciously make that step to start implementing it, and then you get to see the benefits, and then it becomes easier, and it's a cycle towards to fully incorporating it into your working day. So, yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Like the features are cool, but if unless you kind of change the habit and consistently using it, like I know one thing that we've seen is like we might have folks that don't like the word use cases of like rewriting certain sections, adding sections, pulling material from multiple sources. Like that is a pretty applicable use case to a lot of different departments in our company, but if you're not using Word every day, it's hard to remember that habit. I mean, you've had a process you've been following for a long time, and it's natural, as you dive into it, get focused. It's kind of like you go back to those old routines and you kind of forget that option was available. So you really do have to, I think there's two things is you have to, when you're demoing this or kind of teaching, new Copilot users, you have to deliver value to them, like solve a real problem that they have, make something more efficient, save them some time on something, save costs on something, and to show them that there's value to it. And then the other thing is, being intentional with making sure that they are repeating those habits and making it a new habit, if you will. But yeah, good answers. And I think this was a good question. I don't know if we directly answered it, but I think a good conversation. Ready to get into some Excel?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to talk to you today about Copilot in Excel. Today, we're going to cover some of the basic, I shouldn't say basic, but more of the introductory use cases, like those kind of first use cases with Excel. things that apply to a lot of different roles and departments in the organization. We do plan in a few weeks' time to cover a bit more of an advanced one because while we are, you know, we recognize that most of our audience and kind of our target audience here are, you, the end user, those of you that are in core non-technical roles, but even, those of you that are in finance and sales, you might be, living and breathing in Excel on a regular basis. So I think it's fair for us to take a deeper dive into some of this. But again, we're going to cover some of those early adoption use cases to drive the stickiness of Copilot. We're going to cover a few different crow's nest demos today, and we're going to, sort of split it between Logan and I because I'm not a heavy Excel user. Logan, much more so. So first, I'm going to cover a basic use case, which is taking some raw data and then building some visualizations on it. I think this is one that I use because I am a much more visual person. It's a lot easier for me to consume data that I can see the charts and trends. So I'll cover that one. Then I'm going to turn it over to Logan. He's going to show you how to do pivot tables with Excel and Copilot. And then lastly, one that I think is valuable for everybody is using that kind of Q&A chat functionality of Copilot to ask intelligent questions and get insights from your data with Copilot. There are a few other things that we're not going to cover today that we do use Copilot for in Excel. One of them is for the purposes of demos, we oftentimes need to generate some fake data. And so, we can get very specific with our prompting and ask it, tell it exactly what we want, exactly how we want it presented, so that it can help you generate data for purposes of demos or practice with building dashboards. Um, Another good use case for it is like if you're trying to, let's say, for example, we're developing a new product and we want to do some competitor analysis. You can ask Copilot to help design for you, like what would that table look like? You can ask it to add in like some conditional formatting, some of these things to help make your presentation or the presentation of your Excel a little bit more appealing with ease with Copilot, where before, you're having to dig through all the tool kit at the top and figure out, okay, where is this button? So with that, I think let's go ahead and dive into our first crow's nest. Sound good, Logan?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so our first crow's nest demo here is going to be creating some visualizations on just raw data. So this is some sample data that we actually engaged Copilot with helping us fill this out. But, to set the scene here, we are a company that does subsea floor drilling for oil and gas. So we're, producing parts, for that drilling. And so this is sales data. So we can see it's got a few columns for us. It's got a sales rep, the region that we've sold it, what's the customer, what was the price of the unit, how many of the unit did we sell, what was the date, and then this product name over here. So again, I'm a visual person. Looking at this, just at the numbers, I don't know, how much we made in a given month. So let's say I want to engage Copilot to help me build some raw or some visualizations off of this raw data, I should say. So one point that I do want to make before we start here. So if this is like, let's say I just exported this out of some like point of sale system that we have. That by default is a file that's obviously going to show up in your downloads folder. It's not on your OneDrive. To use Copilot in Excel, the file has to already be saved to a OneDrive or SharePoint. So it's got to be in the cloud for it to work. If you try this with a file that's just on, coming out of your downloads or off of your desktop, not going to work. So I've already got this saved to a OneDrive in this case. So I'm ready to go. So I've got my Copilot icon here and it's going to pop up that traditional right pane system. And as Copilot usually does, it's got some prompting suggestions for me. So some formulas, good use case. We're not going to discuss that one today. Maybe something for our next one where we take a little bit deeper dive. We talked about that, applying coloring and formatting. That's another great one here. So what we'll do is I want to ask it to, let's say I want to create a bar graph of sales per month by product, for example. So this is, I'm just coming up with something that might be, I don't know how relevant this is or not, but what Copilot is going to do is it's going to do its thing. We're going to watch it think for a moment here. And then once it's done, it pops up like an image that you can sort of see here. It obviously very, very difficult for me to see even here on my screen. Going to be very difficult for you at home, but it's going to kind of show you, okay, do we get the general gist of it? Now let's say I like this as is. So what you'll note here is it's going to have a button down here. Like I don't see it show up anywhere on my screen, but what it's going to do is I'm going to have to add this to a new sheet. So let's say I like it. I'm going to go ahead and click add to new sheet. And then it's going to take me right here to that. So it's got this table for me here. And then I can kind of take a look at this graph. It's very small. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see it a little bit easier. And there we go. So we've got the month here, the date, dates per month, and then it's split out the products. So from what I can see here is, again, that raw data, very hard for me to see. But what I'm noticing here is we are selling a whole heck of a lot more in form of dollars of this ROV product. So, good example here. Now, let's say I want to do another one. Logan, you got any ideas of what else other visuals we might want from this?
Yeah, maybe we could do like a pie chart. We could really see how many more RVs we're selling and do a pie chart of how many we're selling.
Pie chart. I'm sorry, pie chart of what?
Of like what how many RVs we're selling compared to drill bits compared to subsea valves.
Okay, so maybe create a
Yeah.
pie chart
Yeah.
by
Products.
product,
Yeah, yeah.
and then maybe we can be more specific for January 2025. Just why not? Oh, okay. So yeah, I do have to go back and make sure I've got my mouse clicked in on that. So I've got to go back to the raw data sheet, which I didn't do here. So I'm going to try this again. So create a pie chart, not charge, um, of comparing products sold by quantity for January 2025. All right, looking more promising here. It's doing a little bit more thinking for me. All right, there I have it. This is looking good. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look at it. It's got a pie chart. Looks like what I was thinking I was going to get out of it. And again, I can see same experience. I've got the table. It's got my color coded pie chart for me here, and then I can see the product numbers here. So again, very basic, but something that might be applicable for you if you have instances where you're exporting raw data out of like a third party system, and you might be visualizing some of that data. Like if you want to do just a quick analysis of it, some quick, there might be some ideas of things that you're trying to take a look at trend wise. You can have these visuals built for you. Again, something we might take a deeper look at in that episode is referring to coming up in a few weeks, where we take a deeper dive into Excel, is kind of semi-automating some of these if this is a task that you're having to do regularly. So yeah, I think with that, Logan, are we ready to do the pivot table demo?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's go through some pivot tables in Copilot. So I'm going to select my data, just like granted before, and go here to the Copilot button. And let's ask a question about this data. So this is basically just some fake snack company data that I actually had Copilot make. So let's just start off with a really basic question. Create a pivot chart on our sales growth. And this can create pivot tables or pivot charts. So we're going to start off with a pivot chart here and see what we get.
Question for you on this. So just, half for myself, half for the rest of the audience at home. What is a pivot table and why would we use it?
Yeah, so basically a pivot table is a table that can have a bunch of different rows and different columns. So like, for example, here we basically just have columns, this column, this column, this column, this column. But in a pivot chart, we can have different rows that essentially create a little matrix where if you go to, the date here and the price there, you'll find the correct value there. It's a little bit tough to describe, but I can show you here and
Okay.
get a closer look. So let's just add this to the new sheet. We're going to take a look. So this is a pretty basic pivot chart. So you got our graph here. But when we click into here, we can see our standard pivot chart view. So like I was saying before, right? So we right now we just have a row as date, and then our value is the total price. But I can drag these different fields into this into these options here and create all sorts of different charts. So if I wanted to add the city as well to charts, sorry, to columns here. Um, I can break it up. It's going to kind of mess up my graph here, but we can take a look at the chart, and now we can see these values in different cities. And we can do all sorts of different things with these different columns from our original data. We can also add filters. So if I just wanted to, only see, a certain type of product, if I just wanted to filter by, cookies only or certain ID numbers, those are the kinds of things you could do with bigger charts.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that adding this kind of messed up my graph, but you guys saw it created a a pretty normal, standard graph. But yeah, let's go into a little bit more in-depth example here. Let's try to get a little bit more specific. Let's say create a pivot table that shows unit price and unit sold by gate. And let's filter to the Boston location.
And so when you're asking it to filter, it's just basically going to show you only data that's from Boston as the city there in column D.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And if you are familiar with pivot tables, you might have noticed in Grant's last demo when he was creating those graphs, they were all creating pivot tables on the side there. So whenever you ask Copilot to make a graph for you, it will also create a pivot chart, even if you don't specify for it. Yeah, let's add this to the new sheet and take a look. Cool. So now we have a little bit more information here. We have, our date, obviously, the sum of quantity, average price unit, and we're filtered to Boston. And if I click back into here, I could go back into my standard pivot table view. And so here's where I can, change those filters. So if I wanted to change this, oops, let's do it from here. Change this to, Los Angeles. I can just swap that out. And we could add different filters if I wanted to filter by product. I could drag this into here and we could say, we only want the carrot data. And there you go. So yeah, this is a super useful tool. And we can also ask questions about this pivot table. So, let me look at that here. Let's say, I don't really know what I'm looking at. I could just say, summarize this. And so this can be useful too if you're getting sent pivot tables or really anything in Excel, and you don't really know what you're looking at. Copilot will basically explain it to you. So let's see what it has to say.
Okay, so this is kind of helpful. It kind of shows you, okay, what exactly am I looking at?
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
And this can be used anywhere in Copilot, which is really nice. Yeah, so you get a brief little summary. You could use that as like a little description underneath one of your graphs if you wanted to, give a reader more context. So yeah, this is another super useful tool. Yeah, that's basically how you create pivot tables and charts in Copilot and Excel. It's pretty straightforward. You basically just ask it with whatever variables you want, and it'll do the hard work for you. So yeah,
Awesome. Thanks for walking us through that.
yeah, no problem.
All right, so we're back to my data here, and we're going to show some Q&A function of data. So keeping you on your toes, we're back to the scenario here of from our first crow's nest, the raw sales data of our subsea floor drilling manufacturing company. So let's say rather than creating visuals, that I want to use to kind of make my own interpretations of data, maybe I just want to go straight to the point and ask Copilot to help me out. So I might ask it a simple question of, what is our best selling product in terms of total sales price? Simple question. This is basically just like as if Logan was presenting this data to me in a meeting and I'm trying to ask him questions of it. So, uh, looks like it's got an answer for me. So it showed me a table, some of the sales. So it shows me the best selling product in terms of total sales is this ROV product. And it was, this amount. So maybe I want to ask another question of what was our best month of sales? Another simple question, looking at this raw data, I certainly could do, a pivot table. I could sum up the data for each month because this is listed sequentially here, it looks like, but, um, you know, save myself a couple of minutes here and just ask it. So it looks like I actually had a few different months that, oh, I guess not. So it's telling me that my best month was April. This is an interesting one. So I'm seeing in the table here that it's showing me a couple of different months with the same price. So maybe I'll just add this to a sheet and let's take a look at it. So it's telling me I've got 3 different months that had looks like what's that? April, August, and December. Um, so maybe I want to challenge Copilot on this. So I might say, was April the best selling month, or did other months have the same amount of sales? So I'm kind of challenging it to make sure I feel confident in the answers that I'm getting before I go share this information outside of, in this case, this podcast, but we'll see what it tells us. So it's counter an issue in sales with other months. Please refine your question. Okay, so maybe I'll try the same prompt again. What was my best selling month? So similar way of asking the same question. Sometimes, with your prompting, you got to play with it a little bit to make sure you're getting exactly what you want. Um, and now, okay, so it's giving me quantity, but again, like this is my mistake, not Copilot's. I wasn't specific. So like, I'm going to redo my prompt. What was the best selling month in terms of total sales price? So being more specific, again, more specific prompts, more specific results. Very basic, high level prompts are great for, inspiration. If you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you might, see what Copilot interprets of that as a best guess. But again, if I'm looking for something very specific, I want to make sure my prompting is very specific. Okay. So now it's telling me this, but I still see in the table up here, I still see, these same amounts for other months. So maybe I want to ask it, in the table, you mentioned 3 months with the same number of total sales by price. Is April actually the best selling month, or were there other months with the same amount of sales by total price? So now I'm kind of asking it this more specific question. Um, and this is going to give me, so it's got a sales by date. Um, April is indeed the best selling month in terms. So maybe I'm just going to ask it. Maybe now now this Copilot's giving me a few different responses here. So maybe I want to ask it to create a table that shows total sales uh, by price for each month. So now I want to ask it, okay, you've given me some answers to the questions. I'm not 100% sure that I believe it. Before I share this information, I want to make sure I know exactly what I'm talking about. So now I'm just going to add this new sheet over here, and here it pulls it up here. And so I can see that it's got, what's that? Yeah, you see that?
I was going to say, yeah, I see 7550 or 75,500.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it looks like for whatever reason, it gave me, the most junior month, if you will, but that looks like there was a tie here. So this is where, it's good even with this Q&A, especially if you're sharing this data with other people, and you're using it to make data informed decisions, that you do verify, you kind of get it as your starting place. Again, it's not, you know, Copilot for the everyday user is not replacing the need for thinking. It's an intelligent assistant. So it kind of got me started, it got me in the right area. But even, before, like prior to Copilot, this little pivot table was beyond my understanding of Excel. So this is now accessible to me with Copilot, and it allowed me to, quickly look and validate the decisions here. So kind of a fun one, as we were prepping for this, we didn't run into these roadblocks with the challenges with coming up with, telling us concretely, hey, this was your best month, even though in fact there was a tie. But makes it fun. It kind of gives you more of, what Copilot's like in the real world. It's continuing to evolve and get better. So yeah, I think that's our final demo for the week. We'll go ahead and transition. We'll close you guys up and then talk about what you have coming up next.
Well, sounds good.
In today's journey of the Copilot Compass, we took a look at Excel use cases with Copilot. And again, these are your early stages of your Copilot journey type of use cases. We do intend to focus on a deeper dive and some more advanced scenarios in an upcoming episode. So make sure that you're subscribing so that you can see when that comes out, especially if the, Excel use case is interesting for you. But in today's journey, we took a look at 3 different demos for you. So first we looked at doing some basic data visualizations in the form of some pie charts, line graphs, things like that, based off of raw data, and using Copilot to build those visualizations for you. And then Logan took a journey with pivot tables and showed you, how the everyday person can now create pivot tables with Copilot in Excel. And then lastly, we talked about the Q&A functionality of Copilot and asking Copilot intelligent questions and having it interpret your data for you.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed these examples. And I'm super excited for our next episode on Excel, where we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Yeah, so remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And remember, we have our question of the week at the beginning of every episode. So leave a comment on this video or email the email address in the description with your own question. Or just leave a comment about what you'd like to see next. Remember that new episodes are coming out every Tuesday, and stay tuned to get a sneak preview of what we have next.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.